Okay, now I want to join my two pieces of binding and cut this one off, and I don't want you to be able to notice it. So I'm going to show you my favorite method of joining the pieces. There's a lot of different methods out there. This is the one that I've learned to use easily, and so it's my choice. But if you have a method that works for you that you like better, of course, feel free to use it. I'm going to start by taking the first end of my binding and just moving it out of the way. Then the last strip that's longer than I need, I'm going to position in place, and I'm going to give it just a little bit of a stretch so that it's on there real nice and firm. And then I'm going to come down here and pin it in place so that it's in place where I'm going to stitch it to my bag. Then I'm going to fold it a little bit to get it out of the way, and I'm going to bring my other piece over the top. Now, I want to cut this piece to match this angle. So the easiest way for me to find where that needs to be is to take a pin, and where the point of this piece is, if you look at this point is on the bottom of the strip, this point is on the top of the strip. So when I lay this and mark it on my other strip, I want to mark this point on the bottom of this strip. So I need to reach in here and open that up a little bit so that I can reach my pin in, find that point, and I'm just going to stick my pin in there at that point on that strip. And I put it in a couple times. So that one's marked. Now I want to come over here, and where this point of this one is, I also want to mark on the top of this, because again that was the top of that strip. So now I've got my 2 points marked on that strip where I want to cut. However, I don't want to cut exactly on that because that doesn't leave me a seam allowance. But if I want to sew with this with a 1/4 inch seam, if I cut a 1/2 inch beyond that, that gives me enough to have a 1/4 inch seam on each piece. So I'm going to move this out of the way. I'm going to unpin this from my bag, and I'm going to lay this out. This is why I want it to stop stitching there, so that I had room to lay that out. Now, I find it easiest to mark a good angled line if I use a 90-degree angle ruler. And I love the Omnigrid ruler for doing that. This also has markings every 1/2 inch, so I could also use it on here to know where a 1/2 inch is. But I'm going to use it this way to position on here so that I've got my 90 degree, and I'm just going to take my regular ruler and line it up so that my 1/2 inch mark is lined up matching those pins. So this 1/2 inch mark is on that pin, that 1/2 inch mark is on that pin, and I want to make sure that this is at the same angle, and that looks just right. Now, if I cut this exactly here, for some reason I usually end up with too much binding. So I'm going to take those pins out so that I can adjust it, and I'm just going to scooch that ruler over maybe 1/8 of an inch or so before I cut my piece out. So it's just a little bit shorter than what you would think. I'll cut that out, and I've now got my piece cut at the right angle to match with this one. And I have to admit, it always gives me a little bit of a scare when I look at them because it never looks long enough. But when I get ready to sew, it usually matches just perfectly. Now, I have to take these two pieces. I kind of have to fold my bag out of the way to get them. And I'm going to sew these together with a 1/4 inch seam. I want to leave about a 1/4 of an inch dog ear on each end so that they line up just right. And I'm going to pin this in place here and then straighten it out and pin it in place on this end. And if I turn that over, I should have the same amount of a dog ear showing there, which I do. And then I'm going to stick a pin in the middle too so that I get it good and straight. So I've got my strip pinned together, and my next step will be to sew that with a 1/4 inch seam so that I can finish attaching it to my bag.